We didn't design Forge North to be a new organization or a new program. We created it to get things done together. My job is to help lead MiniStar. We're a nonprofit that's built to serve an incredible community of technologists. For years, our events have helped tech entrepreneurs demo products and introduce new ideas. We play an important role in the ecosystem. So do others. Think about all the programs that exist, from competitions to incubators and accelerators. All of them exist to serve the risk takers who are working every day to solve problems, start ventures, and scale their impact. We built Forge North so we can accelerate their work. It's how I've been able to partner with accelerators, connect to the food or healthcare community, or refer our demo participants to new investors and programs. It's how we've shown up as a team everywhere from Texas to Toronto, and it's inspiring us to dream bigger. Entrepreneurs travel different paths and they move at their own pace. Some of them bootstrap and some raise venture money. Some need mentorship and expertise that others don't. If we're not working together as a community to connect more inclusively, to celebrate each other more proudly, to challenge ourselves to dream bigger, we're not only letting those problem solvers down, we're limiting our own potential. We worked with the Greater MSP Partnership because we needed a strong platform to collaborate. Each of us has a superpower. We need a lot more heroes to join us in this effort. It's hard to describe Forge North because I can't compare it to anything else. It's a rally cry. It's how we work together. And it's where we're going next.
Welcome. I'd like to introduce myself. I'm Brett Carter with Excel, and I've got my co-chair with me here.
Hi, I'm Amy Langer. Welcome.
So if you're watching this, it's because you've joined the Forge North Coalition, and we just want to thank you. The two of us have had the pleasure of chairing the Forge North Leadership Council for the past year. We're also board members of the Greater MSP Partnership, an economic development partnership of more than 200 organizations working together to accelerate the competitiveness and inclusive growth of the Minneapolis-Saint Paul region. We set out in 2020 to do three things: set big goals for our startup community, identify a set of strategic priorities to guide our work, and develop a model for how we work together as a coalition. We're excited to share that with you today. We're going to start working together to achieve these goals. So we want to lean in, and we want you to lean in and identify the areas that your organization would like to work on to advance. So today, you're going to hear from our entire council, a great team of entrepreneurs, investors, community builders, business executives, and champions for startups in the MSP. So I'd like to introduce Damola to provide us with a reminder of why Forge North was created in the first place.
Thanks a lot, Brett. Hi, everybody. I'm Damola Gundape, co-founder and CEO of Civic Eagle. Before Forge North even had a name, many of us raised our hands. And we raised our hands because Matt offered us free beer. Free beer and the opportunity to join a conversation about how we could improve our startup community. We all raised our hands because we wanted to build something bigger than our own organizations. Now, when I got into the room where this conversation was happening, I noticed two things. One, Matt is really into IPAs, and two, the intentionality of the people invited. We didn't start Forge North to build another program. It was to have a space where we can work together on big systemic issues in our startup community. There are a lot of efforts in cities all around the country, and I've seen a lot of them. And most have absolutely no idea what they're doing, if we're being honest. They don't have the determination, the cultural and social buy-in, or just frankly, the talent that we have in the Twin Cities to make the improvements we're committed to making. All of us on the Forge North Leadership Council spent 2020 listening to you and hundreds of others to make sure that we set the right priorities for our work together in the coming years. We've set three main goals, and for each goal, we've identified three priorities that can guide our coalition for the months and years to come. We're excited to tell you about them, but we're even more excited to do the work. It's going to take hundreds of people rowing in the same direction to transform our startup community. And the beauty of Forge North is that it's not on any individual's shoulders. You don't have to do everything. And if you're like me, your plate is already full. participating in this coalition is about bringing that thing you're already doing and teaming with others to accomplish even more. So my ask to everyone is that you listen and afterwards make an intentional commitment to yourself and to the community and how you contribute and be involved. Now I'll introduce you to my teammates, Brian and Ann, to go over our goals and priorities.
Thanks, Damola. We're going to walk you through one of the important goals that we've set. I'm Ann Holder, the CEO and founder of Odinata Health, a company developing medical technology. And we started here in Minnesota, focused on improving fetal and maternal outcomes. I've been working with investors from Minnesota and globally over the past 2 years to fund my company. Brian, I'll turn it over to you.
Thanks, Ann. I'm Brian Gustafson, and I'm an investment manager with Tonkawa, which is the Carlson family office. Another perspective that I bring to the Forge North Coalition is that my wife, Angie, is an entrepreneur. The first goal that we'd like to describe is the goal to double the number of companies raising rounds of early stage capital. We chose this goal because although we lead the country in business survival rates, our rate of actually starting new companies is quite low, and that's a barrier.
And there are a number of ways that we can tackle this challenge together as a region. The first is to have more checks written. We need more people writing these checks. We need to work together as a region to significantly increase the number of active Minnesota investors that have the capacity to do so. Secondly, we know there are increasing numbers of investors around the country and the world who are open to making investments anywhere, including internationally. We need to intentionally connect these investors to our region through loud, sustained campaigns, events, and a lot more.
And thirdly, we will work as a coalition with current and prospective entrepreneurs to demystify how the game of capital raising is played and how it's won. We already see that type of education being an effective tool in many of the leading startup hubs around the world. And we know that we can do a better job of working with entrepreneurs in our backyard so that they are as savvy as any startup anywhere as they plan their fundraising process and begin approaching investors. Now we'd like to turn things over to Mary and Mike to talk about the second goal.
Thank you, Brian and Ann. Hello, I'm Michael Jones, President and COO for TCF Bank. I'm excited to be here and talk to you about our strategy titled Enterprise Participation. Our communities are so much stronger when we have greater participation and are working together.
Hi, everybody. I'm Mary Grove, and I'm managing partner at Bread and Butter Ventures, an early stage venture capital firm investing nationally, but based here in Minnesota and really leveraging our Minnesota home field advantage. Prior to my work in venture capital, I spent 15 years at Google, and I founded the Google for Startups initiative there. And so I've spent the last 2 decades, really seeing up close the magic and the exponential growth that can happen when startups and corporates team up together. So the goal that we've set is to ensure that 100% of our region's billion-dollar companies have meaningful participation in our region's startup ecosystem. Now, we chose this goal because of our high concentration of headquarters gives us a real competitive advantage for the region. Now, these companies can be either customers, they can be investors, they can be partners with talent and expertise, and they can also support our region's entrepreneurial programs. Now, these aren't the only companies we want to be engaged with startups, but we know that focusing on them will have a ripple effect.
We recently completed an audit of more than 30 of these companies and their engagement with different startups. We've discovered a few things to guide our priorities as we enter into 2021 and look to execute on these strategies over the next several years. First, we were surprised how many companies want to get more engaged but don't know where to start. We're going to make sure they have a roadmap to execute. Second, there's strong interest in having a shared platform for enterprise innovation teams to work together and surface shared challenges that startups can help solve. Much of this can be industry specific, but some needs transcend firms. Third, we know that securing an early paid pilot or contract with a major company can be a significant milestone for startups. Beyond this selection and matching process, we heard a desire for a more systematic approach that can produce results.
Now, these goals are very interconnected. So the companies we talked with can also play an important role in our early stage capital goal, including efforts to reach individual business leaders with the capacity to become investors. And most companies we interviewed also expressed a strong interest in advancing racial equity. And with that, I'd love to introduce Jess and Michelle to discuss our next goal.
Thank you, Mary. I'm Jessica Berg. I'm the director of the Minnesota Cup. MinCup is a new venture competition for early stage startups in Minnesota, and we're powered by the time, skills, and financial contributions of this community. People who either want to pay back or pay it forward towards this huge potential economic driver for our region. And I've been part of the Forge North Coalition for the past 3 years, and I am very passionate about the ways that we really can work across organizations to tackle big systemic hairy challenges, because we definitely can do a lot more together than we can do alone or just as one org. So I'm going to kick it to Michelle to introduce herself too.
Thank you, Jess. Hi, I'm Michelle Tran-Marins, Sparkler in Chief at We Sparkle, a B2B SaaS social enterprise equipping underestimated entrepreneurs with the AI-powered tools they need to succeed. Before I started We Sparkle, I was the Chief of Strategic Initiatives at NIDA. So I'm very excited to be talking with you today about our goals around racial equity. Especially in light of all that has happened this past year, we see how important it is for the well-being of our entire community to build a stronger and more inclusive economy.
So to frame up the overarching goal for you, we have collectively decided to focus on making sure that startup ownership is reflective of our region's racial diversity. There's so much within that to unpack, but we distinctly chose the word ownership rather than just participation or work within a startup, because we really want to see people of color financially benefiting from the opportunity and success and potential exits that happen within the startup community. And we see this as a huge critical step in moving the needle on closing the wealth gap between white people and people of color in Minnesota, which is just one of a lot of different really extreme disparities that we see, and we want to tackle it head on. We will initially focus on measuring these outcomes and measuring the startup ownership within the accelerator and incubator programs within our region as a starting point. But this is a goal that has so many different layers and facets to it. And so we will try to continually evolve and improve those metrics as we go further into our work. Just another thing to share or sort of frame around this racial equity goal is that it is complicated. We recognize that there are a number of different levers to pull and a lot of different work and relationships to be built, a lot of systems to be dismantled that already exist. It's not all just creating things from scratch. And so we are really committed and thinking thoughtfully and deliberately about how to do this work specific to some of the projects we've identified, but also in relationship to and partnership with the other goals and projects that have already been shared with you. So I'm going to turn it over to Michelle to share a little bit more about each one of those priorities.
We have identified 3 major priorities. First, we want to build the capacity of entrepreneurial support organizations that serve BIPOC-led startups, especially those programs that are themselves led by BIPOC individuals. As part of this capacity building, we think even more can be done to recruit BIPOC professionals to join executive teams at the startups here in our region. Second, we want to intentionally facilitate greater deal flow between BIPOC-led startups and investors around the country. This intersects with our early stage capital strategies and will focus early efforts on campaigns and events that connect BIPOC-led startups to capital. And third, We believe the region needs to open more doors for BIPOC-led startups to win commercial contracts with the large enterprises that we were just discussing earlier. There are efforts underway in our region that we need to rally around and amplify so that businesses can be built. You'll notice that these priorities intersect with those we've already discussed, meaning we can place a priority lens on all Forge North projects. Now that we've laid out our ambition as a council, I'll turn things over to Matt to describe how the initiative will work.
Thanks, Michelle. I'm Matt Lewis with Greater MSP. Contrary to what you heard from Demola, I'm more of a Pilsner guy. But we're glad you're here. We'll make sure that when we can gather together that there's enough water or beverage of choice for everybody. Everything that you're hearing now from these incredible team members is part of a common approach to how we power what we call initiatives at Greater MSP. First, we think about what's the broadest, biggest possible network of folks who might be part of an ecosystem. That's a word that's maybe a little fancy or whatever, but basically a community, right? And then we assemble a coalition of partners like you who want to take that next step, not just be part of a network, but intentionally lean in and work together with others to make systemic changes that are bigger than any single organization can make. Whether you are working in a startup like Demola or one of the world's largest retailers like Jason, or anything in between. And in this case, each of you is already doing incredible work in this space, and we're so grateful for that. That's what happens in this coalition. A couple of our council members suggest we might need a more fun term for the Forge North Coalition, so feel free to share one with us when you join the Slack later. And within this coalition, or any coalition, teams form. And some of the teams that we have are organized around connecting with your peers. So a couple of our council members lead a team of peers that are active investors. A couple others lead a team of peers that are running entrepreneurial support organizations. But most of the work that we're going to come together and do in teams is going to be to execute these priorities that you're going to hear about in a little bit. And then within that council, we form a leadership team, or within that coalition, excuse me, we form a leadership team. And you're seeing it. And this leadership council represents the broader coalition and can help steer our work. And over time, the council will adapt, just as the coalition will. We're not trying to build a program in Forge North, but a platform to work together. This is about how we work together. And so to make that platform work, we need dedicated staff and some resources to seed the work, and Greater MSP's commitment is to provide that. And thanks to the Bush Foundation, we have leading investment to start seeding the priorities that you're going to hear about today. We know we're going to need more resources over time. We're going to add a new team member in early 2021, a new managing director that will work with our leadership council and all of you to make sure we have even more resources to do this work together. But our commitment is to keep powering that platform. So you heard about the goals and priorities for this work in the months and years to come. And then you're going to hear next about which ones we're activating first. But the beautiful thing about this is that new ideas can come from anywhere in the coalition. They're not just coming from council members. We listen to all of you and hundreds of others in the region to set these goals and priorities. Now we're going to need to hear even more from you around your ideas for how to activate these and things we haven't even thought of yet. And so Meg's going to share a little bit more about that later on. And the council's committed to making sure that we consider all of those ideas so that this is a platform where you can connect with others, even if it was something that we never thought of. No doubt there'll be a few bumps along the way. It's not easy to work together, especially right now. So we're just going to opt for transparency, sharing what's going on, and a willingness to pivot. And hopefully this will be a really incredible year of working together. So with that, I'm going to turn things over to council members to describe some of our priorities for this year. And first, I'll start with Brett Brohl.
Thanks, Matt. I'm Brett Brohl. I'm the other managing partner at Bread and Butter Ventures. I'm also the managing director of the Techstars Farm to Fork Accelerator that's in partnership with Cargill and Ecolab. So I wear a couple of hats. And I'm going to talk a little bit about the first priority that we're launching in that early stage investing area. And what it is that we're focusing on in the near term is activating more investors in the Minnesota community. Raising capital is hard. I've been an entrepreneur. I've raised venture capital funds. Every time I've raised capital, which I've done for startups and for venture funds here in Minnesota, it's hard. It's a slog. It's tough to do. The thing is, in Minnesota, there is lots of money. There are people that have made money in a variety of different ways, but it's just not used to investing into the venture capital scene, whether that's directly into startups or into funds. And so we want to rethink the way we educate, bring those people out, activate new investors to invest directly in startups, to invest in funds, to create more ways to bring more capital to the early stage startup scene. We feel like if we can get that going, we can help start a flywheel that will really pay dividends year over year over year. And this isn't about creating one new venture fund or anything like that. This is about rethinking the way that we bring new investors into the space, into the venture community, to activate that capital, to help startups, to help other people that are helping startups. So if you have any ideas or you want to be a part of that, please make sure you let us know. And with that, I'm going to pass it to Jason to talk about our next new priority.
My name is Jason Breen. I'm a Senior Director of Insight Strategy and Innovation at Target, and I lead our startup engagement through our portfolio of accelerator programs. Now, earlier you heard about the MSP Enterprise Audit that we'll be publishing very soon. I had the privilege of working on that project with a number of my peers. And what we heard through that audit is that consistently companies across Minnesota want to engage with the local startup ecosystem, but they're not exactly sure where to start. Speaking firsthand at Target, it's taken us time over the last few years to really understand how best we can support the startup ecosystem through our programs and how we can best create meaningful engagement between Target and startups. And ultimately, through those learnings, that's information that we can share with other companies that are looking to go along that journey as well. And so one of our first projects that we will be working on with dozens of the largest companies in the region is to ensure that they have a complete roadmap of how to engage and where they can provide support. Now, ultimately, we recognize that each company will have different motivations for and capacity to engage across the startup ecosystem, but we recognize that there's commonality in those ways of engagement, and that's something that we can provide a platform for connection as well as reciprocal learning between organizations. So we can't do this alone. So if you want to contribute, please be sure to indicate your interest. And with that, I will turn it over to Anisha to describe another priority.
Thank you, Jason. Hi, everyone. My name is Anisha Murphy, and I am the Director of Community Advancement at the Community Reinvestment Fund USA. In addition to my role at CRF, I am also the CEO and managing attorney of Just Law LLC, a boutique business law firm that provides innovative, creative, and accessible legal tools to underestimated business owners. At CRF and in my role at Just Law, I've had the distinct privilege of working with our local entrepreneur support organizations such as MEDA, LEDC, Women Venture, and Social Impact Strategies groups to build a more responsive business and financial system for BIPOC, women, and veteran communities. And while so much work has been done, there is so much more that still remains. To that extent, now is the moment to ensure that our region is investing more in these organizations that serve BIPOC entrepreneurs. We need to ensure that all entrepreneurial support organizations focusing on a specific industry are better equipped to work with BIPOC-led teams. These organizations can also play an important and pivotal role in recruiting BIPOC talent to join the executive teams of promising new startups. It is our goal at the Forge North Leadership Council to work together with development and marketing experts to ensure there is a coordinated effort to grow the pie and bring new local and national resources into our region's entrepreneurial support organizations to build prosperity in our region. If you wish to contribute and get active in our work, please be sure to indicate your interest. And now I'll turn it over to Sam to describe another priority.
Thank you, Anisha. Hey, everybody. My name is Sam Nadelli, Director of Employer Inclusivity at the Center for Economic Inclusion, and also the co-founder for Gravity, an organization that focuses on bridging the gap between BIPOC-led startups and other startups here in the Twin Cities. And one of the things that we've heard a lot about is the lack of venture capital flowing to Black and Brown founders across the country, specifically here in our region. But we are starting to see some positive signs that we're hoping that is created around the country that's dedicated to investing in startups. In 2020, a Forge North project team led by marketing and expert investor Lisa Armstrong worked with local agency Zeus Jones to design a marketing strategy to national investors. And what we call this is the MSP Hot List, and it's gonna be a real-time resource featuring startups in the MSP area that are actively raising capital. Our team will be running this marketing campaigns, attending investor events, and engaging with firms around the world to ensure that they know that MSP is a place to invest in diverse talent. Our campaign will focus on telling the stories of BIPOC-led startup teams as well. We're excited to tell the story to a national stage. So if you want to contribute, be sure to indicate your interest. And now I'm going to pass it on to Meg to close it out.
Thanks so much, Sam. I'm Meg Stoyer, and I'm the manager of Forge North. Over the last few years, I've had the honor and privilege of working with this leadership council and dozens of other partners to build Forge North and set our community goals. And this year, it's exciting to see us turning those goals and strategic priorities into action. And so as we look to do that, involvement will look different for every member of our community. And hopefully, after listening to all of our leadership council members today, you have an inkling of where you might want to contribute or where your passions lie. And with that, I'm going to dive into the tactics of how you get involved and plug into this incredible coalition. So whether you're interested in a specific priority area and want to dive in today, you're looking to get connected with some of your peers, or you just want to stay involved and updated on what's happening within the coalition, the first step is to join our Slack channel. And Slack will be where we share updates and resources for coalition partners. It will also be a space where you can connect with one another and other partners in the coalition. We're excited to also be launching a project platform, and that's where we will house all of the information on projects for project teams to have information accessible in a single place. And so as we stand up these platforms, as we get active on Slack, the goal here for us is to understand where you're passionate, where your energy is where you're looking to spend that energy, and how we can help facilitate that for you. And so as we look to Slack as our means of communication, as you join us there, we'll be sharing more information about the various opportunities to engage at different levels throughout the coalition. And so the first way to engage is to just be on Slack and be part of the community. The second way is to opt into a project team. And so that could be one team or many teams, but you would be a contributor with a team of partners working towards one of our goals or priority areas together. If you want to get even more engaged and feel like you have skills or a passion to contribute, we're also looking for project captains. And that will be an application process where you can raise your hand and really help us understand, where do you think you could take this work? How could you step up and lead a project team or lead your peers in moving the work forward? And the last is to think about, are there projects we haven't thought of? Are there things you're passionate about or talking about in community that you think we should be looking at, that we should be working on together? And there will be a place on our project platform to submit those ideas for review by the Leadership Council. So we'll post all this information on Slack. Slack is the place to go to be reminded of all of these different opportunities. As we have specifics on opportunities for projects, for project captain openings, we'll post all of that on Slack. And we know the work doesn't end there. It doesn't end on Slack. It doesn't end as part of single projects. So we also want to make sure that we're creating space on Slack and in other areas one day when we can reconvene in person and Matt can buy us another beer, that we're allowing you to connect with your peers, to share resources, information, to connect with one another. And we hope that Forge North will serve as that platform. As Matt mentioned earlier, we are already convening a number of peer groups that we've thought about how do we intentionally and consistently connect our partners. And so those peer groups are around entrepreneurial support organizations, corporate innovators, and local active investors. And so if you fall into one of those categories, our project platform will have a place for you to raise your hand and opt in to be part of those peer groups. Again, if you think of a peer group that you're a part of, please let us know. Those are other opportunities we have to start a new peer group or a new roundtable to serve you and to serve the community, with Forge North being that platform. Outside of Slack, we obviously encourage you to follow us on social. Tag us if you have big news that you want amplified to this Forge North network, so that your peers can be involved and be knowing what you're up to in your own work. And then finally, as always, I do this all the time, but I will put a plug for forgenorth.com, where we have 550 local startup resources listed as part of our Startup Compass, and hundreds of local investor events, educational events, all sorts of learning opportunities hosted by our wonderful partners, all in one place. So it's a great resource for folks looking to get connected in our local community. And with that, the last thing I'll remind you of is that we'll be sending you a monthly update. It will come from me on behalf of our Leadership Council, a great place to get all of the information as we continue to scale up this work. But if you have any questions, I'll be on Slack. My email is available to all of you. And with that, I'll turn it over to Amy to wrap us up.
Thanks, Meg. Again, I'm Amy Langer, co-founder of Salo, and I'm wrapping us up today. All I can say is, wow, that was a lot. We talked about the ambition, we talked about 3-year goals, we've talked about our priorities, and even some tactics. And that is quite a bit. What I know from being an entrepreneur is we can have all of that look beautiful, but the difference made is in the execution. And that is really what we need your help in. The good news is that many hands make for lighter work. This is a big coalition that continues to grow. And if we partner together, there's no limit to what we can accomplish. You are already doing incredible work to advance these goals in our community. So what I'm going to leave you with is a call to action. The call to action is consider just one area where you will make a contribution, where you might make a big difference and change this rising tide for the better. We'd also encourage you to share your own big ideas, invite others to the table. This coalition is as much yours as anyone's. As Meg said, be sure to join the Forge North Community Slack channel, express your interests in projects, and we look forward to seeing you more in 2021. Thank you.